You're listening to episode 138 of The Secular Buddhist. Welcome to The Secular Buddhist. I'm Ted Meissner. The Secular Buddhist is the official podcast of the Secular Buddhist Association, a grassroots-driven effort to answer the needs of secular teaching and practice for contemporary society. The podcast has interviews and roundtable discussions pertaining to engaged Buddhist training and practice, and the SBA website has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Though the podcast focuses on core practice from a secular viewpoint, more traditional teachings are welcome and openly discussed. Zen teacher Brad Warner speaks with us about his new book, Hardcore Zen Strikes Again. Zen stories are filled with teachers doing odd things. Their behaviors, their words, can often rub people the wrong way, as the softness of social constraint gives way to pointing out the realities we often lose sight of, and the profound nature of our practice. By their very example, these teachers have historically called us out in our lack of questioning the urgent need for looking at life differently and changing it. Fast forward in time and to the left geographically to modern-day America. How might the words of some contemporary Zen teachers have that same impact on our social attitudes? It can be said that it challenges us to rethink what we're really responding to and what that can tell us about our priorities. Interestingly enough, punk does the same thing. So to find the radical hardness of punk in alignment with a course Zen teaching shouldn't be very surprising. Our guest today is Brad Warner, Zen monk, writer, bass player, and filmmaker. He wrote the books Hardcore Zen, Sit Down and Shut Up, Zen Wrapped in Karma, Dipped in Chocolate, and Sex, Sin, and Zen. He received Dharma transmission from Gudo Nishijima Roshi, who received his transmission from Rempo Niwa Roshi, who, at the time, was the head of the Soto sect in Japan. Brad is also a student of Tim McCarthy, who is a student of Kobun Chino Roshi. So, sit back, relax, and have a nice Oyama cold sake. And our guest today is Brad Warner. Brad, thanks for coming back again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to talk to you again. And when last we left our intrepid adventurer, this was, for folks listening, episode 45. We had talked about sex, sin, and Zen, and at that time you had just moved to New York, so why don't you give us an update of what's been going on since then, because it's been a while since we chatted.
Yeah, that was, must have been over a year ago.
Yeah, but over a year, yeah.
Well, New York didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, so I didn't stay very long there, and I moved back to Akron. Did a lot of, since then, I did a whole European jaunt at my second, so I was in, where was I this last time? Netherlands, Germany, England, didn't go to Finland that time, France briefly, I guess that's it. So the time before that I'd gone to Israel, and they all get mixed up in my mind. Just doing the Zen thing and talking to people and doing what I do. Yeah.
Cool. Now, what was it that brought you out to California?
Well, I'd lived here before. I lived in Los Angeles for 5 years. And the thing about California was I didn't realize how much I liked it until I left, and then I started missing it. And I moved to Akron for a little while. Akron, Ohio is where I'm from, and I moved back there after New York kind of went south for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of gigs in the Midwest and the South that were all predicated on the theme of places one can drive to from New York City. So, so I needed to, I needed to relocate, and so I needed to relocate someplace that was still going to work out for those gigs, so I wouldn't have to cancel them all. And Akron being where I was from, it worked out. So I stayed there for about a year and a half, maybe just over a year, and then just moved back to California a month ago. I guess it's been a month now.
Okay, so you're just settling in now.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, interesting. And the thing we want to talk about today is that you've got a new book that's coming out, if it's not already out.
It's already out.
Already out. Okay, would have just come out, and that is your book, Hardcore Zen Strikes Again.
Yeah.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about first Hardcore Zen, and then about how the new one came about, because it's 10 years later,
Almost 10 years. Uh,
almost 10.
let's see. The first Hardcore Zen was uh, that was a book I wrote while I was living in Japan, and I was trying to just write about my experiences with Zen and how it related to my earlier experiments, as you might call them, in hardcore punk, and how I felt that that was somehow related one to the other. And that was a book I've told the story many times, so anybody who's heard an interview with me has heard this before probably. But I wrote several books, novels before that, and I wasn't getting anything published. And I wrote Hardcore Zen, or the book that became Hardcore Zen. It didn't really have a title at the time, uh, and just as a kind of an exercise in writing, just to keep up the writing that I'd done and to try my hand at writing something nonfiction. I did not have any uh, confidence that it could be published. I was just writing whatever I wanted because I didn't think this was going to be publishable anyway, so it was very free. Um, and I only sent it out to publishers because I knew by then the drill of sending a book out to publishers and how you get rejection slips. So I thought I'll just collect some more rejection slips on this one, and that was the one that interested a publisher. So I embarked on this career of being a Buddhist writer. But the initial hardcore Zen, a lot of what went into the book were modifications of pieces I'd put up on a website before then. So what I did for Hardcore Zen Strikes Again is several people have been telling me how wonderful the world of ebooks is and how I should just put something out. One guy even told me I should just put out things I'd put up on my blog and just kind of repackage them. And I thought that was I don't know, that seemed like a little bit of a rip-off idea. This assured me that it was perfectly legitimate and a lot of people do it, which I'm sure is true. But and I've done that. I've bought things in print that I could have bought online. But I thought it'd be better to do something new. So what I did is I took a lot of the earlier articles that had formed the backbone of Hardcore Zen in their original form, and then wrote new introductions and new outroductions, I guess what you call it.
Yeah,
Like
postscripts, whatever. Yeah.
scripts or something afterwards, I think is what I call it. For each one, kind of first setting up what I imagine I was thinking at the time. You never really can say what you're thinking exactly at the time because it's all gone past, and then kind of reflections about it because I didn't think it was good to just put those things out in their raw form because mostly I found I didn't really have vastly different opinions. I just had a very different way, I think, now of expressing the same ideas. So, some of those articles are actually a bit embarrassing, and I even say that in the prologues to some of them that I find them a little bit over the top, or I don't know why I was using so much profanity. I think I was just being, I don't know, I don't know what I was being.
You were being punk.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose so. It was just a style of writing that I thought was amusing, and so now this new one kind of updates that, and it has a couple of it's mostly those things. It has two or three other bits that aren't like that. It has one is a chapter that was submitted as part of the book Hardcore Zen, but for reasons I still don't understand was cut out by Wisdom Publications, because I think it was uh, fits perfectly in with the rest of the book. So I don't know why they chopped it out. Um, and then there's another thing that I like a lot, but I don't know if readers of Zen stuff will like a lot. It's an article I wrote for a monster movie magazine about my work at Tsuburaya Productions, which is a Japanese monster movie company that I worked for 15 years. Uh, so I put that in as the very final piece, just so it'd be easy to skip if you're not interested. It does have a little bit of a Zen connection to it, but it's mostly about my work at the company, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Which magazine was it for? Because I, of course, grew up on Forrest Ackerman's Famous Monsters of Filmland, as I'm sure you did.
Yep.
What was it for?
It's for a magazine called Monster Attack Team, which is a very sort of one of these very specific genre things. But the cool thing about Monster Attack Team is I just got word that the current publishers of Famous Monsters of Filmland have picked it up and are going to be putting it out as a kind of they've done a few Japanese monster themed issues, and they now going to put out Monster Attack Team as a sort of sister magazine to Famous Monsters. So that'll be cool.
Very cool.
I hope they ask me to write for them again.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see that article in print in it finally.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right. So as you were looking back on the articles that you probably hadn't read for a while,
Yeah.
and as you're contemplating the new book and you're going through it, and you make some really good observations about each article, both in the setup and then particularly in the afterword, as you're talking about that. What are some of the things that you remember as you're going through this? You're like, what is it that struck you most about the you almost 10 years later in your writing style, just that piece?
Um, I don't know. I thought it was a bit reckless occasionally, and I understand now better why people reacted so strongly to some of it. Uh, but well, at the same time, I don't feel any real regret for expressing myself the way I did. I think that that person, needs to be heard, or he seems to be demanding to be heard anyway.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so I thought I thought it was interesting. I thought, well, I know what sort of feeling I had when I wrote those, and it was often miscommunicated or miscommunicate might be the best way to say it, as anger. I think people assumed that I was a sort of raging anger machine, when I really wasn't. I would write things the way I spoke and the way I still continue to speak. And in print, they come across a little different in print, or whatever you call what things appear on computer screens.
On screen, yeah.
On screen, yeah. Um, because it's divorced of the tone of voice. I would say, can we swear on this podcast?
We can swear in this podcast.
Okay. I would say something like that. That guy's a fucking asshole, which I meant to be expressed like that, and people would just read it as a string of words, and they go, "That guy is a fucking asshole," they, get their own voice into it. Whereas to me, it was just sort of things like that would be just sort of throwaway comments and not really intended to express any sort of deep anger or upset. They were just like, that what an idiot.
Yeah, it's more colloquial use rather than outrage.
Yeah, yeah. And I think most writers sort of reserve that language for expressing outrage, and I see why, because it doesn't read. It's hard to make it read the way I want it to read.
So you're going through it and you're seeing that the the way you would have put things might be a little different, but it sounded like from what I read in the book that you're really still in agreement with the things you said and with the tone of it. Was there anything that stuck out for you as like, ooh, no, I was completely wrong on that? Is there anything that you're like, yeah, no, I don't think that anymore?
Well, I mean, there were a couple of pieces like that, but I didn't put them in the book, because I was going through a lot of things. So if it was something I really felt bad about saying or that kind of thing, I just didn't put it in. There was only I'm trying to I remember that there was at least one place where I just saw a sentence and I thought, "Oh no, I can't have that in there," and I cut it out. I don't remember where it was though. Um, because I was really trying to stay true to the stuff as it originally existed. So I only did that the one time because I just thought whatever I said was just way too. It was not even it was way too prone to be misunderstood is what I remember thinking, but I wish I could remember what it was. So I could tell you, but I don't.
That's all right. So when you finished it all up and you put a bow on it, it's like, okay, here we go. It's
Yeah.
now almost 10 years later, and I know this is going to be kind of a lame question, but I've got to ask it because you did a retrospective, so you opened the door.
Okay.
You got the time machine. You can step into it. You go back, and you're talking to you. What would you say? Would you have any advice about, other than, don't take the red pill? Other than that, what else would you say to you?
About writing and stuff, I don't know.
Anything. Doors open.
I just feel, I was watching those It Gets Better videos. Have you seen those things?
Yeah.
For people who don't know, they're messages to. I think they're supposedly messages to gay teenagers to tell them that all the crap they're going through now as gay teenagers, things are going to get better. And historically speaking, all the people who were bullied and put upon in high school are the ones who end up being successful later in life. It's sort of, I don't know when that might reverse, but anyway, I kind of feel like everything is continued to improve in life. So I would just say stick with it, Brad. It'll it'll all work out. And I have a very kind of optimistic view of life in general, which is it's a pessimistic optimism. I go back and forth with both. As far as writing, I feel like I Hardcore Zen is still my best-selling book. I just got a check for it the other day that was completely. I mean, it wasn't astounding, but it was way more than I expected, and it was really nice. Uh, not enough to live on, unfortunately. But but I didn't actually, years I guess now after the book is published, I didn't expect to get anything. So that's the level we're talking about. I didn't expect to get anything at all, and I got a check, and I'm like, oh boy, there's money. So it still sells, but I feel like more than any other book I wrote because it was my first. It's sort of compromised, not in a way that I feel ashamed of it or anything, but I feel like a lot of it wasn't exactly what I wanted because I kind of let myself be guided by the people at Wisdom Publications to making a book that was more commercial, and this is probably why it still makes money. Um, it's a more user friendly book than I intended it to be. You know, and then part of that comes from the Zen tradition, which is the Zen tradition is sort of has a reputation of not being very user friendly. For example, the traditional thing, if you go into a Zen monastery and want to enter the monastery, they'll make you sit outside for. In the past, they'd make you sit outside for days or weeks, refusing to let you in because they want to weed out anybody who's not serious. Because it's a sort of it's a serious practice, especially a monastic practice. And I kind of felt like I wanted that approach for the book. I wanted it to sort of weed out those who really weren't serious about it. But instead, it sort of is much more welcoming. But which is fine, which is fine. Um, and I suppose if there's anything I'd say to myself is that in the past that bothered me a lot more than it does now. Now I think it's okay. It's okay that it did that because it sort of helps, and there's people who have seen who've seen it who wouldn't have seen it if it had been the kind of book I wanted to put out, which would have been much more like the pieces that are in Hardcore Zen Strikes Again now, without the introductions and stuff, which are more like "screw you, I hate," that's what people think they're saying.
So moving forward to today, one of the things I noticed is that your site has changed a little bit. So for folks who are listening to the podcast, again, I'm going to link to the episode page for this. But so go to hardcorezen.info.
Yeah.
That's the new site. It's a much cleaner look than you've had them before, but everything is still there.
It's
which
pretty
is really
much
nice.
the same, I think. Yeah, it's better. For years, people have been telling me, and I've been thinking it was a good idea to make a more professional looking website, because I had a Blogspot website, which is a free thing that Google does. I just recently came across something that says nobody reads Blogspot website blogs, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. But and it's a template that I managed to go in and fiddle with and make it look a little bit more customized. But it's very, it's Google sets it up, for you. It's Google's thing. So this was set up by my friend Jace, who's a computer geek and knows what he's doing, and it just looks nicer. And we have a shop now where people can buy the books and stuff. We're going to put some other. We're talking to somebody who makes these interesting sort of punk rock zapus made out of old flannel shirts, which I
Cool.
like a lot. And we were both, Jason and I are longtime Zen practitioners who've been lamenting the fact that zafus, the meditation cushions, are always tremendously expensive, and they're just a pillow. And we can't figure that out. And even if we can still price these at like half the price of normal zafus and make a profit on them. And so we're just
there's something going on there.
Yeah, what the markup is. And I don't really think these zafu sellers are a bunch of greedy people or anything, but it's just I don't know, for some reason they're marked up as like a premium item when they're really just a pillow. So we're gonna have that, and and it'll be just be a better website. We're trying to figure out how to put a forum on. I don't know how to do that.
We might be able to help you with that because we got that on the SBA, so we can talk later. I also see you've got a note here from your posting on July 30th that your roommate is making a documentary about you. Tell us more about that.
Well, his name is Piruz. He's of Iranian descent, hence the odd name. But I think he was born in Delaware. Anyway, he's a filmmaker and a film teacher at UCLA. I think UCLA. But he's he let's see. Not long after Hardcore Zen came out, I was contacted by a person who was like, I want to make a movie of Hardcore Zen. And I thought, oh, that sounds like fun, because I was in movie business, and it'll be great. And we talked for a long time, and nothing ever happened. So then another guy came up, and when he came up, I was a little less excited, but I was like going along with it, and then nothing happened. Third guy, same thing. I was less enthusiastic. Fourth guy came up and did it. I was kind of like, oh, all right, fine, and didn't do much with him. Then Piruz, I think, was number 5, and he'd come to one of my sittings, and then later on sent me an email saying he wanted to do a movie, and I said, okay, well, just tell me when you want to start filming something, and I'll cooperate with you, but otherwise leave me alone. I wasn't quite that mean to him, but I don't want to have more discussions about a movie that's not going to happen, because it's just silly. And I was shocked when about 2 weeks later he was like, "Well, I got a cameraman, and we'd like to come in and shoot your stuff next Saturday, if that's okay with you." And I thought, "Oh, this guy's really going to do it." So I've been working with him for over a year now. He doesn't. He's completely self-financed, so it's taking forever to get it done. But the latest thing that I actually I'm actually guilty of giving him this idea. He wanted me to go with a camera and film people at who come to my Saturday afternoon Zen things talking about me, and I was like, I don't want to film people talking about me. Why don't we make an announcement and ask people to send in their own videos? So so he set it up, and that's what he did. I haven't seen any of the videos yet. Uh,
Yeah, and you
so
make a point of saying, I never want to see these videos.
Yeah, I mean, and nothing, not to slight the videos, but you don't really want to see anonymous people talking about you. It's not, even when they say good things, when they say good things, it's embarrassing. When they say bad things, it's infuriating. So I just don't want to see them. I'll just,
It's
I'll
like
let,
watching hot dogs being made. You don't want to see that.
yeah, yeah, true. And I'll just let Pirus edit them into something and look at it later.
Well, for folks who are listening to this, I will include a link if you're interested in that and you've got a video of Brad. You can send it in, so I'll have a link in the podcast episode for this. And Brad, what else are you working on? Have you thought about another book that's not a retrospective, but a go forward? Because I know that you're very involved in what's going on in Western Buddhism, and you are actually, you described this very well earlier. You're a world traveler, so you've got a certain perspective that I know people
Yeah.
want to keep hearing more about it. Do you want to keep that on the blog side, or are you going to think about doing another book?
No, there's another book. It's finished-ish. In when you do a book, basically, if you've got a regular publisher who likes what you do, like I do with New World Library, I I told them I had a new book, and they wanted to see it, and they liked it, and they want to publish it. So I sent them the whole book months ago, and I'm still waiting for the editing process. And then the editing process starts, and the book can change. So I don't want to say it's finished because it's not really, because there's going to be stuff. But the title of the book is going to be "There Is No God, and He Is Your Creator," and it's ideas about God, and I feel like this is an important aspect of especially Zen, and I'd like to kind of reintroduce God into the picture because I think some of what I see as going wrong with Eastern spirituality in general, in Zen in particular in America, is people are taking God out of the picture. And I understand that because that sort of anthropomorphized giant guy on a with a beard
Yeah,
on a
the
throne,
Magic Sky
the
Daddy. Yep.
sky, magic sky daddy, yeah, is obviously ridiculous, and unfortunately a lot of people seem to believe in it. Um, so yeah, there's not that kind of God, and Buddhism doesn't have an idea of a creator God. In fact, it has a kind of a mocking idea of a creator God. There's a story, and whether you believe this is literally true or not is up to you. But there's a story in the old ancient Buddhist stuff that says that everything in the universe undergoes a change. I don't like to use the word reincarnation, but things go cyclical. And at the end of an age, every living thing dies, but then everything is going to be reborn again. And the first creature that gets reborn hangs out alone for a while, and then after a while, other things. This is a Buddhist cosmology story. Other creatures start appearing because they, due to the ripening of their karma, they start getting born. And so the first one who's born in that age thinks that he is God and
Because he
thinks,
was the only one. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
imagines that he's created these other beings, but it's not true. He's just on a kind of a massive ego trip, and according to the way that the Buddhists, the old Buddhist stories have this this first being, can get way out of hand with the biggest, ego in the universe, causing his eventual downfall because of that. It just sounds, if you were to overlay that on top of the Christian mythology of creation, it kind of comes out kind of funny.
Gets entertaining from our perspective, yeah.
Yeah, it puts on a whole new spin on the whole Adam and Eve story, Um, but so they have that attitude towards that sort of an idea of God, that it's kind of a ridiculous thing. But on the other hand, there is a sense that there is something vital and enormous within the universe that that is much like some of the other ways we conceive of God, and people who see Buddhism as a sort of atheism are kind of missing out on that, and I think that's where a lot of the abuse comes in. I've been pretty vocal about a certain guy, although he's certainly not the only one, who claims to have this process which will get you a Buddhist enlightenment experience in a matter of minutes, and I think if you rephrase that and said, "I'm going to give you an experience that's going to make you see God within."
It's like any other claim that
then
that
you may
variety.
be more dubious of that, though. I think Western people who have a concept, and if it's a vague one of God, be really dubious of it. Go, oh, I don't know about that. If you say enlightenment, well, people think it's a psychological state of, perfect refreshment or something. I don't know what it's like. But if you talk about it in terms of God, it's much bigger. And I think what we're dealing with in Buddhist practice is actually pretty big and pretty profound, extremely profound. And I feel like the word God is the only thing we have in English that gets close to expressing the level of profundity that we're dealing with in Buddhist practice. That Buddha was dealing with, that all of us, who are pursuing this thing are dealing with. And I feel like I can't comfortably call myself an atheist, although I don't believe in most of the things that most of the people I run into who say they believe in God believe in. I also have to say that I too believe in God. It's because what I believe in and what I feel like I've come in sort of slight contact with during my practice is too big to be called anything but God. You can't express it any other way.
Yeah, and we keep running into these conversations where we need to recognize we're at different places in this scale, that we can be comfortable with being an atheist and still have very compelling experiences that are enriching in our lives and are really mind-blowing and big. We can look at that and view it as you're doing and say, that it feels much bigger than that, and God's comfortable term, and this is very much a personal experience. So where we kind of get bunched up is when we get into the whole pointing fingers and saying, you can't use that word, or you can't value it the way you are. I can't get on board with that. I can't tell someone not to like bitter chocolate, even though we all know it's nasty and milk chocolate is much better.
Well, yeah, I kind of like bitter chocolate. It's like the Europeans who eat the salty licorice. Like, what's up with that?
It's if it's fresh, it could be okay. It could be okay, but it's got to be fresh.
Okay, I'll take your word on that one.
So I'm looking forward to hearing more about the new book, and good luck with the editing process. I know that can be that can be very challenging for you.
I got a good editor now, and I think it'll be fine. But he hasn't sent me anything yet, so.
So are you going to be? I presume you'll be teaching in Los Angeles more. People can find you there.
Yeah. I'm already doing. When I was here before, every Saturday I met with a group in Santa Monica, which is out by the ocean, on Saturday mornings at a place called Hill Street Center, and I'm doing it again now that I'm back. So I'm there every Saturday, and I'm looking to start another group on the east side of town, because people in Los Angeles don't like to travel very far. But actually, I can understand that, because the traffic is so terrible, that getting to the west side of town for somebody on the east side is a little bit like people in normal parts of the country visiting a whole other city.
It's just that foreign.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's you run into these nightmare traffic snarls too. So.
Well, our guest today has been Brad Warner. Again, looking at the website for folks who are used to going to Brad's site, I'll have a link for it on the episode page, is hardcorezen.info. Book I've been talking about this time is Hardcore Zen Strikes Again. Reminder to everybody, we did talk with Brad in episode 45, so if you're interested in hearing his voice more on this podcast and about his background, he talks more about that there. Brad, thanks very much for being here. I look forward to chatting with you about There Is No God, and He is your creator.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come visit the SBA website at secularbuddhism.org, and you'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. Discussion about this episode can be found on the episode page itself, along with show notes. The music for The Secular Buddhist is used by permission from John Kaizan Neptune's CD, Steps in Time. Additional music is provided courtesy of Monty Levinson of Taihei Shakuhachi and Rodrigo Rodriguez. Their websites are also linked on the SBA site on the About Podcast Music page. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on The Secular Buddhist.